Today is the last day of class. It's been great. I just want to say that the whole screen sharing thing has been awesome. It's been a huge help being able to talk through things and have you then go back, watch the video, and give me a video in return with the feedback. I feel like that really made me better in this class. I hope more classes at Full Sail do this. Alright, so to begin, this week went really well actually. I feel like I'm finally starting to understand the difference between articles and divs and sections and when they should be properly used. So I'm going to go ahead and just go over my 10 components. I've made a lot of changes, but I think the code actually, it makes sense. It looks much cleaner than it did in the previous 3 weeks. So I'll start with the header for diesel.com. Okay, so this is what this final one looks like. It is still a little rough. I had a couple problems with some styling, but I'll go ahead and go over the HTML now. So I went ahead and I put everything inside of a header, and then within the header I have a nav. With the nav I have the diesel logo here in the top left. After that, ultimately I had all of these as unordered lists here, but to style, to add the border left here to give this little line, I had to add a div. So then it's just an unordered list. The same goes for the online store. Like I said, I added the div for that border, and also to be able to create this extra space here. And the same thing is just repeating. This one I cleaned up a lot by getting rid of all those divs I originally had and all the IDs that I originally had, and found this to be much cleaner and simpler and still get the same result that I had previously. Okay, moving on. Let's go to the Virgin America header. This one turned out really well. For this I put everything inside of the header, and then I have the logo here again in the top left, essentially the same as the diesel one. And so you kind of touched on that, how they were different before, so I really went back and studied why I was getting it wrong. And I think I was using, I was confused with a lot of the ways that things should be set up and what a div, an article, and a section actually were. And now that I know the difference and how to use them appropriately, I see that CSS is strictly for styling and that HTML is strictly for structure. And I was confusing that for the past year now. So within the header I have a nav, and then within the nav I have 3 unordered lists. 1, 2, 3. Okay. The contact us form, this one I didn't really have to change much because it looks like I had done it appropriately. I didn't use any unnecessary IDs. I already had the form tag in there. And then from there is essentially just paragraph tags with the inputs and the labels inside it, and then styling. The same with this registration. I think the only issue you really pointed out with this one was that there was no label text for these radio buttons. So now at this point I am able to click on the male or female label, and the button will check. The express registration I changed a lot of things about this. It's much cleaner. It looks actually like it's supposed to look this time. And I got rid of all those unnecessary IDs. And there were a lot of them. Now looking back at it, knowing mostly what I'm doing. So I have a section tag, and then within this section I have a form here on the left. And on the right I have an article for the create an account. Within the form I have a heading, and then paragraphs that include the inputs and labels. And then over here in the article, a heading, the paragraph, and a submit button. Much simpler. I think before I had like a div and ID for, I don't know, 3 or 4 of them. Okay, moving on. The virginamerica.com registration. This one here is all enclosed in a section. Drag this down here. And then within the section, I have this top part here. And then I have the forms divided into 2 divs, one for the email and then one for the password here. Those divs I thought were necessary because it is actually dividing up the section into different parts. I had a lot of issues with this previously. This week it turned out really well. You had mentioned that these were all previously H3s. I've now changed it to an unordered list with clickable links, the way that it should have been from the start. So within the body, I have a section for everything, or everything's included in the section. The login and the Our Frequent Flyer program, those are both just headings. And then here I have a form, and like I said, just an unordered list here on the right. I used positioning to put these where they should go. I set this section to a relative position, and then I used absolute positioning for the form and the unordered list to put them where they are on the page. Within the form, it's just the label tags and the inputs, and then a couple submit buttons. I think I already mentioned here, these are all clickable links as opposed to just H3s as they had been before. Much cleaner, much simpler than what it was last week. Moving on, I have the virginamerica.com form or login. Here, it looks almost identical to how I had it last week, though the code is 100% different. A lot of these I actually just restarted from scratch, copy and pasted the things that I knew were correct, and then improved upon from your feedback, and also lots and lots of reading to really actually figure out what these are and what they do. rather than just using HTML to style along with the CSS, which now I know is absolutely wrong. So these here are everything's within the section, but these are just in H1 and H2 rather than a div. Then I have two forms. I used positioning on this one again to ensure this was on the left and this is on the right. Within the form, it's just a standard form, paragraphs, label, input. The error message I left because I figured it's right. It's very simple. And lastly, the footer. And this is where I had issues, and hopefully if you do a screen share for our last video, you can kind of help me with this one. But the alignment here is off. I know that it's not top aligned, and I'm not sure how to get there. I assume maybe the footer just bottom aligns by default. I couldn't really find any information on that. But here I just set these up as articles. And those include an unordered list. And before I didn't have the subscribe as a form, which was a big mistake, and I went ahead and fixed that, cleaned it up a little bit. I believe I used, I just, like in the headers, instead of using positioning, I used display as inline block for the articles. Now, I originally had H3s for this part, for the, like the overall of the list, but that didn't seem right. So I went ahead and changed it. I'm still confused on the footer, and any feedback would be great to help me do that. Overall, I think my understanding of HTML has increased tenfold from this class. My code is starting to get simpler, more straightforward, efficient, I suppose. And that's all. It's been a great class. I look forward to your feedback. Thank you.